welcome to the Football 360 show, the fastest hour of football talk on the planet. Happy Tuesday to everybody. I am JP Rock. He is Matt Bierman. Good to be with you. Lots of football stuff going on. I know that, college football is really dying down. We have the national championship game, right?
Yep.
Paying close attention to that, the playoff games, all that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's I like it. I think it'd be better if there's a little bit more of a bigger tournament that
you think bigger tournament.
Yeah, see, add some guys in and let them really play, get rid of the bye.
Yeah.
I think the bye, all four bye teams lost.
How big would you make it?
24.
Really?
16, 24.
I don't know about that.
Let them play.
Yeah.
Bring in.
So you want to make it to where
because I think some of those mid-tier guys would step up and knock out like a number 8, and now the number 8s are sitting there playing for the 7 and 8 or playing for the national title.
I just think that just shows a lack of knowledge as far as people who rank.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, I think that's all that shows. I think that if you look at a Notre Dame and Ohio State, I mean, come on. You don't think that those two are, after watching them all year, like the two of the best top 4?
Yeah.
I mean, some guys were overrated. Some guys, some teams were overrated. Some weren't. I don't know how I feel about more mediocre teams playing. And I know guys could get lucky. And from
I just think that there'll be some of
those,
but I do think they screwed up with the buys. I mean,
I think
you think you're doing someone a favor. I mean, when all 4 teams lose, that got the presumptive advantage by getting a bye, and they all lose.
Right.
That should tell you something.
And and you see it. I mean, you saw it way back in the old bowl game days, right? The extended time off.
Oh,
people, people show up, and some guys are just happy to be there. Some guys are partying, they're enjoying the experience, and
and teams that played, their conference championship, right, and then turn around 2 weeks later playing a bowl game, where the other team's been off for a month. That is a huge competitive advantage, right? And so, I think if they can equalize how all that plays out, the conference championship games can't go away because they make way too much money off of them.
Right.
So
I get that, but you know how it is. You can't turn it on and turn it off.
No, absolutely not.
It just doesn't work like that. And so this is why we're seeing what we're seeing. I don't have a problem with Notre Dame and Ohio State. Both good teams. Both have star quality players. It's not like you're getting.
The only thing is, and you see it in the NFL, you scratch your head, like, some of these matchups, and then the games get close, and then it feels like, there's some calls that go certain ways because there's, the tough thing is TV is such a huge component of the game, right? Like, it's such a huge component. I mean, it's a game that you're watching where they play 16 minutes.
What are we talking about?
Actual live.
Yeah,
live video feed. The rest is conjecture, entertainment, advertising, and then which then plays into kind of my point.
In fact, you sent me a clip of somebody saying $8.7 billion is what college football brings in.
Yeah, it's some bizarre number, right?
Yeah.
And it's only going to bring in more, but the problem is more money comes in, then you have to factor in who's in your national title game.
Yeah.
Right. They don't want Boise State in the national title game.
Yeah, it's not going to bring in a lot of television eyes.
You start to look. I mean, who plays bigger in college football, Ohio State or Texas? Ohio State.
Yeah.
Fan base, school.
It's probably pretty equal between.
I would say that they just because of, but just to, like, their viewership, right?
But who's probably the biggest of them all?
Notre Dame.
Bingo. Absolutely.
Right.
Interesting how that works out.
It is interesting. And then remember they said that they had the college football bowl committee they didn't even look at what they rated people, right? They didn't even really factor into how they matched. It's like, come on. Like,
right.
Well, maybe you didn't, but the people paying for this tournament did, and they want certain teams. But I will say, I think Ohio State played a hell of a game. I will say there was probably 5 or 6 calls that were highly
suspect.
Oh man, I mean, just for instance, just name the last time you saw a strip sack. Okay, so that ended the game. I bet you cannot find a strip sack in an NFL or college game where they did not replay it. Didn't get replayed.
Yeah.
His arm wasn't coming forward. But I've sat and you've sat and watched how many football games in college and pro where the announcers gyrate for 35 to 40 seconds, 50 seconds, and they, oh, well, it might be, and then they bring the rules official in, and to talk about obscure rules or whatever it might be in his judgment.
Yeah, I hate that.
They did not do that on that. And that was the game, right? And the down before that on third down, Ryan Wingo was held in the back of the end zone, not even close. He grabbed him, it spun him around. And but Kirk Herbstreit, which I found interesting, the ball was tipped. Well, I train quarterbacks for a living. Tipped balls do not perfectly spiral. I mean, I went back and actually zoomed in. I'm like, nope. But again, it was not a replay scenario.
So you think the refs had a dinner reservation?
Well, no, it's just one of those things that it just those two calls kind of left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth because I'm like, in all these games, I'm fine. I mean, there was a earlier in the game, there was, I think, the ball came out and they replayed it probably for 2 minutes, and his wrist was on the ground, his knee was on the ground, and then the ball comes out. It's like, you're not going to do that on the game deciding play.
They wanted to get out of there, right? But you're right. It's such a huge game. They should have done it, but they wanted to get out of there. Well, they were fine. They were fine with
those
outcome.
games are getting so long. Yeah. I mean, they started at 6:30 and ended at 10:15. I mean, they're getting their money's worth.
I mean, you see it at high school games. They start going on a little bit.
Yeah.
And you can tell that the refs are like, come on, let's get out of here.
Oh, well, yeah. It's like, at the junior level and like the freshman and JV level, if there's a game after the other one, it's let's move it along.
Move it along.
Let's get in and out. So, but I think, if you're looking at the favorite, obviously would be Ohio State to beat Notre Dame, but you just never know. I mean,
you'd think.
The tough thing with Ohio State is they've been so hot that you wonder, can you stay that hot? And they did cool a little bit against Texas, and Texas is a damn good team.
Right.
I mean,
and Notre Dame's got a lot of momentum.
They do. But they have a lot of injuries. That's the tough part.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Notre Dame's doing it with a lot of St. Louis kids. I mean, Ohio State's got some St. Louis kids. I think that's
St. Louis and Missouri kids.
Kind of interesting.
Interesting. It is interesting. Think about, and I'm not, messing on Mizzou's head, but you think about a backfield of Jeremiah Love and Aeneas Williams, right? I mean, how would that be? You think about adding a Christian Gray, a Gabe Rubio.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the thing. And I know people are upset, and some Mizzou fans are upset. Oh, they should have been in the playoffs. This is where I think expanding it would not be that great.
Here's where Mizzou will be in the playoffs if they ever lock down the borders and get the kids.
Correct.
Because if you look at,
are we going to do an all Missouri team?
The kids that come out of our metro area plus Kansas City, and then all throughout the state, like if they were ever to lock the borders down, which I think some of that, the governor given the leeway to sign NIL once they commit and they sign and getting the money.
Right.
I think that was an effort to kind of help that effort. Right. I think that was the state trying to help the university out, and unfortunately, recruiting starts a lot earlier, and a lot of those kids. I mean, let's just look at the kids that were in this class that are going out of state now. Corey Sims.
Mm-hmm.
He was a guy that I personally witnessed probably something that I don't know at the time if he thought it was a big deal or not. We went down to a spring practice, with our 7-on-7 team.
Yeah.
And he was there. He had an offer from Mizzou as a sophomore, and no one even said a word to him. And I had walked over and told a couple people, like, hey, that's Corey Sims over there. And it just was one of those things that did not go well. And I think, obviously they turned up the heat later on as he got older. But, things like that kind of go a long way. And again, you're not going to be perfect in recruiting, but if they could lock the borders down, I mean, think of the guys over the years, the Kyron Williams.
I got a list right here.
Okay.
And it was posted on January 1st. List of guys who played high school ball in Missouri on the CFB playoff rosters today. Keyshawn Elliott, who a lot of people don't know about, but just so happened he was an elite combine veteran.
Did you
Fo-
invite him?
I did invite him, sir, out of Richmond, Missouri, which is how you know that
Yeah.
I invited him.
Right.
Played at Arizona State. Ryan Wingo, SLU. Jalen Pace, MICDS, was on Ohio State. Will Kesmerick, got that name right?
Yep.
MICDS.
Old Chesterfield football guy.
Yep. Ohio State guy, right? Oregon, Dante Manning, another elite combine MVP guy. Raytown, Missouri. Jeremiah McClellan, MVP of the elite combine.
So was Wingo.
Jay Harris, another elite combine guy. Zach Grace, Carney, Tion Gray, another elite combine guy. Right? That right there is just Oregon. Think about that.
And you're talking about somewhere that is a long plane flight away and 24-hour drive to get to.
Yes. So Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love, CBC, another elite combine MVP. You see a pattern here? If you're listening, right? Elite combine, by the way, is coming up
March 8th.
You hear this?
Here's the thing, kid, there's another combine that's going to be the same day over in Kansas City. With all due respect, do not waste your time. These groups that come in and out,
carpetbaggers,
it's guys that come in and out of town that don't have the cachet, that they say they do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for them, it's just a payday. They're going to have half-assed coaching staffs there because they don't operate in the area. We're going to have guys that coach throughout. They coach every day of the year.
And what's interesting is those guys. A lot of those guys coach these guys at the combine.
Correct.
That I'm mentioning, and so they're going to be there. So Aeneas Williams, Hannibal, we all know him.
Yep.
Christian Gray, DeSmet, Gabe Rubio, St. Charles Lutheran, all just Notre Dame. And then Georgia, Jaden Riddell out of Ray-Pac, and Sam Mpemba, also from Ladue. Those were guys as of January 1st that were still playing. So you
put them on a
team,
staff.
right.
That staff gets them together, gets them on a team.
Right.
And you add to the other guys. And so, like, I do laugh when you hear guys like, well, Missouri doesn't have the guys. No. I would argue that our level of play is not top 50% in the high schools in the country. Some of our best teams, but aggregate, we're not. But players, top 15 to 20% in the country.
Without a doubt.
Athletes, for sure.
Without a doubt. And the thing about that is, as you know, I've done this nationally, right?
Yep.
I've covered national recruiting. I've covered it from the standpoint of Mizzou, being on the Mizzou beat deal for about 10, more, actually probably more than that, years. So I know what the talent's like everywhere. And I'm telling you right now, you'll see Mizzou still do it. Dip down in Alabama. Well, there's this kid from Alabama. There's this kid from Mississippi. Or there's these kids from Pennsylvania, which seems to be the hot thing that Mizzou's kind of. No.
There's kids in Missouri just like them.
Absolutely. Or better.
But the problem is that the perception is, and I would say yes. Is Pennsylvania high school football probably better than Missouri high school football? Probably.
Overall.
But you're not recruiting teams, you're recruiting individuals. Exactly. And that is the difference. And so, and I would argue that, I played with a bunch of guys in college that were from Texas. They were physically more mature when they showed up to college. A lot of them knew a lot more football because it's kind of ingrained in their system.
Sport. Yeah.
But there's an argument. I've talked tons of high school coaches and tons of college coaches about this. A lot of kids plateau and kind of start to kind of just peter out over time.
I see it starting to sophomore
because
year.
What happens is they get over indulged in the game of football, right? Whereas a kid coming out of Missouri, the vast majority, they're not doing like a real spring ball, so they're not like inundated with football. So if you catch the right guy that's athletic enough and you put him on the stage and let him and kind of cultivate that through the college program, you get a guy like a Jeremiah Love. He's not overstimulated in football. I mean, he's like, he's the opposite of that. And guess what? He's shining on the national stage. Whereas there was probably 5 or 6 kids that were running backs that were bigger name guys than Jeremiah coming out of the state of Texas or Florida that are where are they nows. Right. And so I think, from a college coach's perspective, recruiting the Midwest is kind of a really, really good strategy because people do come fight for kids out of this area, out of Chicago, all the way down through here. But those kids, we have not, the vast majority have not peaked because a lot of them are football. They're getting into the game of football as they get to high school. They're getting more serious about it, and they're not spending their entire spring. They're playing other sports. They're training. They're developing. They're really an untapped resource. And then, I forgot what the statistic is, but St. Louis per capita is in the top 3 metro areas with players in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right.
And
how does that work? Well, I will tell you that
the talent's there.
I would tell you that I would like to say that, back in the day when I first started, I'll have to find this and we'll play it on the show one day. They did a story on us on Show Me St. Louis in 2000. 6 or 7. It's like that.
Like
we had just moved into the facility. We were cohabitating with Velocity.
Yeah.
And they came in, and I had Wes Kemp, Robert Steeples,
coach at
I think Blaine Gabbert was there. So anyway, the lady, the guy interviewed me, and it was talking about what are you doing this for? And I said, we really want to just we have such good players that have come out of our region historically. We want to put St. Louis on the map from a player perspective. Our teams as well. We want our teams win the state championships because at that time the Kansas City teams had been on a pretty good run. But we want our teams to win at the high school level, and we want our players to be better so we can contribute to that. But we want to put our players on a national map, like letting them know that St. Louis is the place to be for recruiting athletes. And I look back on that, and I think we've played a role in that, right? Because so many of the guys that have come out, the stories we have about those guys developing, and I'll tell you, there's some kids we haven't trained that have gone on and done pretty well. But by and large, the vast majority, but I will say that there's probably more kids that we have not trained that were supposed to be big dudes and guys that have gone on and have not done a ton because they had not trained and developed in high school and picked up a mindset of getting better and pushing themselves and really learning how to fend for themselves, right? So many kids get caught up in thinking their team is going to give them the individual skills that they need.
If I go here, then I'm going to get recruited.
And the problem with that is that if you look at how they develop kids in high school and throughout the Midwest, there's only so many hours in the day that they're going to get to spend on individual skill development. There's only so many hours, and that's not many. It's vast majority of practice time is devoted to team and scheme-oriented choreography, if you will. Very little bit of time is besides warming up and doing some basic skill work, you're not really spending all that time on development. So we always tell our kids, if the average practice is 10 minutes of practice is individual, and say you have a position group of 7 to 8, 9 guys, there's only so many reps you can get. Well, if you go spend an hour a week in the off season of just working on your skills, that's a week's worth of, you're getting 40 minutes to 50 minutes a week in high school season of individual, right? That's it. In college, you're getting even less. So if you don't have those core skill sets, you're not going to magically develop them while you're trying to learn a college level playbook. It just doesn't work that way.
And especially now in the climate that we're in, right? If you do not do some form of skills training, forget it. Right. You're not just going to show up, be the best athlete in your high school, be a star on your team, and colleges are going to come after you because there are guys who are putting in the work.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it before we went on the air. There are guys who are putting in the work and they're playing at some lower level schools because that's just where we're at with the transfer portal and the climate that we're in. And you look, going back to Jeremiah Love, right? He was one of a 3 running backs stable that they used, right? They rotated their back. So fresh legs, but he was that athlete. He was that dude. Like I said, elite combine MVP.
Different.
Just on a different level. And you want to talk about not getting the skill training in high school. And, that's nothing against the high schools because they have the time that they have. There were kids this past weekend in elite because you kicked off your winter training program, which was a big success. A lot of really talented guys coming in there.
Big day.
But there were guys who were telling me that I had invited in there. We've never done any of this in high school, especially some offensive linemen. We're training with Coach Pond. They're like, one kid's like, I've never done any of this. I'm like, so how much time do they spend teaching you technique and skills? None.
Because
None.
Because and look, I coach my middle school team. Like I'm done with those guys, but I own a training business, right? So you would say, okay, and the guys I bring to help coach, a lot of those guys coach skill development. I do the same thing in my football practices. We only have so much time to get our individual work in, and then we're on to game planning. Like there's only so much time in the beginning of the season where you can do it. So you would argue like, hey, we're going to go do this summer when teams do their spring, or this spring when they do their spring ball. Most are going to spend time on installing the new plan for next year, right? Yep. And so, but what I would always argue, and I think I've told you the story. You can stop me if you remember this one, but but I had a lady years ago tell me, and I thought it was really interesting. She says, "Hey, look, I've been observing what you guys do in here." And she's a dance person, right? And so
dance person,
like that's what her deal is. So she's like involved in like high level, like
training
and like shows and stuff like that.
Choreographer, perhaps.
Yeah. So like she'd put on like big theatrical productions. So she looks at me, she says, "You know what's wrong with football?" And I'm like, "Oh, here we go. Right here. Tell me what's wrong with football." Right. Like the host of things. And this is like back in the age.
She's doing pliés while she was telling you what's wrong with.
This was when like all the issues with head, concussion and stuff were out. So I'm like, "Oh, here we go." She says, here's what I see. So she says, dancers, when we get them, when they're little kids, they come in and we train them for years. We teach them the skills for years. She's like, we will do recitals every so often just for the parents to kind of see what they're paying for. She's like, but it's not real. It's just for fun. She says, we train them and they get about 16, 17, 18. And then we start to teach them the choreography of actually how to string all the skills they've learned together to do the choreography. Then they get to do the competition and show the real one, right? She said, "You know what I see with football? You know what I see the problem with football is I go watch a high school practice for her son. All I see is choreography.
Yeah.
All I see is choreography. Then they compete on Friday. Correct. They compete on Saturday. Where's the skill component?" She's like, "That's why I bring my son to you guys." She's like, "I have witnessed this." She's like, it happens over and over. And I looked at her, I said, "Well, to be honest with you, when I started this, that is the exact observation that I made." And I thought to myself, I was coaching, I was competitive, I wanted to win. I'm like, these kids don't even have the underlying skill sets. That's what's holding us back. Like, for instance, a kid comes in and wants to learn how to play any position. Okay. There's basic skill sets that the body must possess, right? Like from an athleticism standpoint, so that person can actually execute those skills.
Correct.
So if a kid can't run very well, why would I put him in a receiver class if he can't run? That's the underlying skill set.
Right.
Same thing with football. If the underlying skill set is how to get in a stance, how to beat a certain, coverage or a release or take on a certain rush,
how to move your feet,
all those things are skill sets. They're situational skill sets. There's foundational skill sets, situational skill sets that everybody needs to understand how to do. The problem is that if you watch high school football in general, and middle school football is the exact same, there are so many issues that are going on. It's like a leaky dam, right? And so you would assume even the best programs in our area, no, there's a lot of kids just kind of squeaking by because they don't have the overall skill sets that are required.
You see way too many guys just standing up and
and so
jogging.
So and then then you can make the argument. You go, well, college is a lot better. Yes, to a certain degree, but it's parity at that point, right? And so is the NFL. Have you ever watched an NFL game and you go, how's that guy keep making that mistake? Like for instance, next time you watch an NFL game or a college game, watch the number of dropped balls and watch the receivers jumping for balls that they did not need to, that were not over their head, that they jumped. The vast majority of drop balls occur because somebody is jumping for a ball that they don't need to jump for. It happens all the time. And it might be a jump this high. It might be a jump this high. any sort of like jump right before a ball gets to you completely throws off the rhythm of your hands coming to the ball, the timing of your brain, all that stuff. It happens all the time. That is a fundamental skill set that you can teach to little kids through, high school and college kids.
Catching with your hands is a fundamental skill.
Of course.
Which is one of the things where you're thinking about jumping instead of where are my hands, you catch them with your hands. That's
right. So yeah, you're going to catch with your hands, and then your brain gets this altered, signal, if you will. Right. And it that's where that happens. But that is something that can be drilled into people, right? And it's a confidence thing. But how do you get confidence? Through drilling over and over and over and doing it with a discerning eye. So someone's telling you like, hey, like this is what I tell my kids all the time when I'm training them. I can see you throw. You can never see yourself throw. You have to accept that. You have to understand that you can trust me, and we get to a point where you can trust whatever I'm telling you is exactly what I see. You can only watch yourself throw on film and in the mirror, okay? But your perception of what your throw looks like versus what it actually looks like and what it feels like is the big disconnect. So if I can get that kid to understand, hey, what I feel when I throw the ball connected to what he's telling me he's seeing, now all of a sudden there's major strides being made with this kid making better improvement. The issue becomes the brain. You ever see like a little kid doing like playing sports, and then like they exaggerate, like a kid like swinging like these gigantic swings, because I think that's what the pro player is doing, right? Like I'll tell you, like a quarterback, sometimes we'll tell these guys, I'll say, hey, you look like, Marsha Brady, right?
Yeah.
And it's Tom Brady. You think it's Tom Brady, but it's Marsha Brady.
Yeah.
And so I think on that side of things, like, you have to learn to be coached, but you cannot fool yourself. Playing on a team is not preparing you. It's preparing you to learn a system. JP, what are the odds that the system you learned in high school, that you spend all your time and your identity, because your high school has that identity. This is what the Tigers do. This is what Tiger football or whatever
what we do. Yeah.
What are the odds that that's being run at the same level that you're about to go play in college? Zero.
Yeah.
Right? Zero. Unless it's like a wing tee guy that you're going to a wing tee off. Yeah. Okay, fine. But that is a huge issue. And so many kids get caught up in, and then that's why a lot of them fail. They get caught up in, well, this is how you play football. No, there's a ton of different ways to play football, just as there's ways to learn skills as well. And so I think, I see so many times where like there's coaches get on their high horse and say, do not go to anybody that does skills training. Don't go play 7-on-7, but it's okay when they get paid to coach, but no one else should get paid to coach, because they know. And like usually their argument is you learn more from being in a team environment. And from that perspective of like hard work, camaraderie, all those things. Yeah, but you're going to get that anyway if you play on a team. You should, if you have good culture. Yeah. If your coaches,
it really depends on if the mindset is if everything is team, then you'll help the team be successful, but you will just be a cog. You won't make yourself successful. And there's that selfishness and control. That there's not a lot of that, but there's some of that out there. And that's some of the stuff you have to deal with. But I'm telling you right now, if you do not take it upon yourself to, learn the skills in your own time, to be trained on some level, you can pretty much just forget it, right?
It's not for you.
Well, it's not for you, and you can kind of forget about playing college ball for the most part, unless you're just fine playing it on a lower level. Or you have any aspirations, right? You have any aspirations of playing it in a higher level, I would say D2 and up, you better do some kind of training, because we're seeing kids, and we were talking about it before we went on the air, we're seeing kids drop down because of the transfer portal. We were talking about one of the local teams who only, what'd you say they had 5?
They signed 5 high school kids in the early signing period.
This is a D1 school, signed 5 high school kids. And I'm telling you right now,
that is red alert. That tells you they are going transfer portal heavy.
High school recruiting in 2025 and foreseeable future supplements, right, the transfer portal. It's totally reversed. It's inversed, right? Yep. Transfers were like, oh, this kid transferred. Oh, well, he's got to sit out.
He's a pariah.
He's a pariah, right?
He must be a problem. Yeah. Why does he keep leaving? They're signing kids that have been at 4 different schools, 5 different schools. And giving them hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it.
I was telling a parent, I'm like, he was concerned about his son in school. I'm like, look, he's got 5 years, 5 different schools to get as good as he can possibly get.
Yep.
That's where we're at right now. And
it sucks, but it's the reality.
It is the reality. And so don't feel bad about it. And even kids who are like, oh, well, I'll talk to them. Well, where are you going to go to school? Well, it looks like I'm going to go to Truman State, or it looks like I'm going to go to, I'm like, for now, I'm like, why don't you show if you're that good? Remember when it was big where guys were like, they're sleeping on me. They're sleeping. You can't be slept on anymore. There's no excuse for being slept on. Because if you are good enough, if you're that good and you're going to keep progressing as a player,
they will find you.
And the only way you're going to keep progressing as a player is
got to keep working. You got to keep working. You got to keep training. And okay, not to, I guess I'll say his name. Kid stud, Alex Bray, starts, plays a ton at Illinois on a top 20 team. Built like a brick shit house. Kid's a big stud.
6'4",
right?
260.
I think he's 275.
275.
Yeah. So you look over Christmas break. Guess who's in doing sprint work? Right. Fields are closed. Snow's on the ground. He's in there in a high school class working speed mechanics and sprinting. Right. I mean, he's a grown man. Right. But do you think running is less important because he's at University of Illinois, or more important? It's probably
absolutely
for him. It's more. And so I use it as a teaching moment with kids. I go, hey, why do you think he's here? Why do you think he's even working out? I mean, he made it. He's at Illinois. He plays. No. To get there and do it, you have to do it right. And so we had a kind of a cool event this past Friday with our friends at First Form out in at their headquarters in Fenton. I
never get those invites. So
you know what? I had to work, and then I went late. So really kind of cool open event for the they call it like an open thing, but you like reserve and whatever. It's like a community workout night. So there's people, all different types of people working out, and they're like adults and like bodybuilders and CrossFit people, all that, you know, because their gym's gigantic. Well, Jeff Lavecchio, who we're going to have on the show one of these days, he runs all the hockey stuff that we do. He's a hockey guru and trains all that. We have a gym that
I want to be a guru someday.
Pretty much specifically hockey, right? And so he does a podcast on it's called the Hockey Think Tank. Does really good job, just great in the community. Well, he ran a workout. I think we had like 45 of our guys there, players. Some getting ready to go to college, some high school guys, a few middle school getting ready to be high school guys. And it was like some just cool stuff, but it was like the lights were down, the music's pumping, but he gave them a speech at the end. And he was just being realistic about, like, if you say you want to be, someone picked you to be here, you say you want to be these guys. Well, to get to this level, and like he's talking about the football guys, he's talking about the hockey guys he works with, to stay there, it's nearly impossible. So you have to be doing things and learning things at this point and making good choices in your life to even put you in that scenario. Yeah. Right. And so that's why I get really like upset when I hear people like, you don't need to do extra stuff. You just do what we're doing. Yeah, coach, but that doesn't bode well. We have kids right now that are at University of Missouri that have come back on break, that are getting extra work and that are doing extra workouts. They're at a Division I SEC program and they want more because they're trying to get beyond. Newsflash, you can only be there 5 years. Once your years are up, now it might be 8 years in college, but once they're finally up, you're done. Right? So why would that kid, he's already at a big school, why would he do extra work? Oh, because he has aspirations beyond. And so that environment, but Lavecchio gave a speech. It was pretty fiery. A lot of F-bombs, to the point though. First person to respond to it when it got posted, Michael Neese with the Lions. He's like 100%.
Been on the show.
Truth. He was like truth.
Well, you want to know why? You know what that is? That is, you have to have the mindset of, I haven't made it.
Ever.
Right. Ever.
Yeah.
I haven't made it. And unfortunately, we see that there were some guys who signed, they signed in December, and I'll just say it. There was a training session, private training session at your place. It got canceled, and they could have come in on Sunday. They didn't show up on Sunday. Andy Hertline showed up, signed with Indiana State.
Yeah.
He showed up, and we were talking about it. He's like, oh, man, I thought those guys would be here. I'm like, well, they're comfortable. Guess what?
Comfortable.
That's not going to get them anywhere on,
Right.
on the next level. And I'm not going to name any names, but show up. You haven't made it. I'll tell you right
never have
now,
made it.
you have not made it by
and
signing.
my point
and
for
you're right.
talking about Alex Bray, listen, over the years, we've had guys, Nicholas Morrow was he plays for I think he's with the Bears now. But he's been 7-8 years in the league. He spent a couple off seasons with us. He would be in the high school class working out. This is the NFL starting linebacker working out. And someone's like, why would you do a high school class? He goes, it's the same stuff.
Right.
This is the stuff I got to get better on.
Yeah.
To think that because you've magically arrived, like, and you're going to college, and now the class that helped you get there, like a high school class. No. Those skill sets are identical to the skill sets you're going to need over time. That's just the way it works.
Yeah,
so,
it is. It is. And you see it with guys, a guy, who's been on the show, Jackson Cantwell, right?
Yep.
Everybody's found out about Jackson Cantwell. And he was down at, what is it? Is it Under Armour game or something?
The Navy.
The Navy.
Navy
something
All-American.
like that.
Yep.
And so everybody's like, ooh, he's 6'8.5" and 300 pounds or 315,
Yeah.
But and he's that, but he's also a guy who works and who is smart and knows that he's not there yet. First thing that happens when I talk to Jackson, he's like, I got work to do, man. I got work to do.
He was in not the Navy when he was
I thought it was Under Armour.
Yeah.
Something with an A. So
yeah, I think you're right.
So yeah, I think it was an Under Armour deal. But he's a guy who's going to go far because he has the natural God-given ability of being almost 6'9", 300 something pounds, and super athletic, super strong, and has that mindset.
Right.
So he'll go as far as he wants to go.
Well, yeah, and I was going to bring this up earlier to match our point about what we were talking about with like top players in Missouri and closing the borders. How many times have we had one of the top kid in the country is a kid out of Missouri, right?
Yeah.
Jackson Cantwell's one, Dorial Green Beckham.
Yep.
Who else are we thinking? That Williams Nereri, who didn't pan out at Mizzou, was one of the top guys.
Some people thought that.
Yeah,
Sheldon was up there.
Sheldon Richardson was up towards the top.
Yeah.
Which they were correct on that one.
Right. Yep.
I mean,
but there were guys, and there were guys who were top guys, like Alden Smith wasn't up there, right? He wasn't, highly thought, ranked like that. But yeah, it's just a few guys, that have been up there. And it doesn't mean you're going to pan out.
No. It's just going to make you more money.
We lost our signage.
Yeah, Joe, you got a little signage on us. We're timing out on our signs. So, but yeah, I think, I mean, looking in the game now, like the earning potential, the crazy thing is now you look at like, what's his name? Carson Beck.
Yeah. Right.
Kid that was going to be awesome, going to play it. He's going to be a lifer and play at Georgia. Now, all of a sudden, did you hear what his NIL they think it's going to all be worth when it's all said and done?
I think you told me, but
$10 million.
Yeah.
10 million. I don't know where it's all coming from.
Yeah.
Now, there's tremendous amount of pressure on him.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, if he makes, let's say he makes 5 million, 10 million, what's he really care at the end of the day? He's coming off of a Tommy John, which, he declared they told him that was a bad idea. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the NFL scouts are like, hey, you should probably stay, decides to stay, goes down to school with his girlfriend at University of Miami. And now he's $10 million. I mean, that's more than the majority of the guys will ever make in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't that Underwood kid signed with Michigan? Remember we did this, did a story on Larry Ellison and Dave Portnoy. That's what they offered him, $10 million to come sign with Michigan. It's crazy money. And so if you didn't have the incentive of I haven't you never make it, I got to keep working. I got $10 million is a pretty good incentive.
Well, let me tell you, JP, I think there's going to be some unintended issues in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
Because so many guys coming out of college, this was their shot to make the NFL, right? This is how they were going to change their family's life.
Yep.
And you would hate to think some kid is getting that level of money. Let's say not fully like NFL money in college, but a lot of money, life-changing money. And then they're thinking, yeah, I'm still going to make it to the league. And they spend their money today as if, but you only win the lottery once. You usually don't win it twice, right? So these guys, hopefully they take in their mindset like, golly, this is a lot of money, and they have the right people around them. But $10 million to play college football.
Right.
I mean, Brock Purdy hasn't made $10 million yet, and he's been playing 4 years in the league.
Isn't that crazy? That's crazy.
Right?
So could you conceivably see people being like, all right, I'm at Michigan, I'm making $10 million. You renegotiate your contract each year, you have success. I don't need to go to the NFL.
Well, or I'm not signing a contract that's a league minimum rookie contract.
When I made this much money. You're right.
My market value is this. Why would I work for $750,000 when my market value is $10 million?
So you just take that and be like, I'm good. I'm set for life.
Well,
I've invested my money. I haven't just gone out and blown it.
Yeah, because people have this fallacy of like, oh, they're going to go to the NFL. They're going to get their pension. Their pension doesn't start till they're 50 plus years old.
Right.
And it's not.
And how many guys
their
401k,
the 401k in the NFL, I think is as good as they 100% match.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty darn good.
That is pretty darn good.
Right. Whereas most employees are 10% or whatever. Like they're
100%. Yeah, the 100% match quit back in the early
you
2000s.
Put 100,000 in, they put 100,000 in. That's a pretty good deal.
Yep.
I don't know what they cap it at, but maybe they don't.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's one of those things that quite honestly, it's going to change the dynamics of the NFL. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about. This mega league that they're going to create is going to rival the NFL. The only difference is the NFL lifespan is 2.5, 3 years is the average lifespan. Well, college is 5-year lifespan, right? And so you can earn probably as much money in that 5 years. You're not going to earn the money that the mega stars are earning in the NFL, but you're going to earn probably what the mid-tier to upper mid-tier guys are earning and then some.
Yeah.
And then these guys are going to come in with an attitude of like, yeah, man, like I really need more.
Yeah.
Right? So it's going to drive that cost up, I think, right? Because the NFL used to have the monopoly on, well, we're going to pay you the big boy money.
Right.
Well, guess what? They're paying the big boy money. And it's interesting. I keep hearing conflicting messages where people are like, well, once the schools start paying in and the House first NCAA, payments start and the school starts paying, NIL is kind of got to go away. Why would NIL go away? Because if you're Missouri, I'm Illinois, Joe is Kentucky.
Yeah.
We're all paying our 17.5 million or whatever it is. It's 22 million and it goes to the basketball and football. Let's say we take 17.5 and budget that for football. We break it out a little uniquely, but everybody's kind of making around the same commensurate amount per school, right? So backup quarterback at each school is making about the same, right? Backup or starting lineman about the same in salary, school salary. Well, that's just a level floor. How do you differentiate? You differentiate through NIL. Those deals is how you get those kids to transfer. Those deals. Yep. So before it was a scholarship that everybody's on a level plane. Now it's base salaries a level plane.
Yeah.
To think that NIL is going away, you are smoking crack. No. It is only going to increase. It's going to get bigger. And unless Congress steps in and outlaws it, but I don't think the courts are going to allow that.
Right.
Like read the tea leaves. Like open commerce in the United States is how the United States has grown, right? The free market. You start restricting because you don't like the consequences of people spending money and your team's not winning.
Right.
Or you don't like how the optics of it. That's on you. Figure it out.
Right. No, you're 100% right. And what's interesting is I could see college football kind of like replacing the NFL to an extent, to where there are these players who, you're absolutely right. If the NFL doesn't want to pay more money, I've made my money, right? I'm a young man. I don't have to go through the physical rigors of getting beat up more
and getting cut,
going
trying out again.
Right. And because really you're taking a step down because you have more leverage in college. You'll make more money. You'll have more leverage.
I can
right?
tell you this.
Then you could be a young man if you're smart and you get your degree and you have your money, go live your life.
So I don't know this for a fact, but let's just say it rides industry standard.
Mhm.
Kyron Williams, year 3 NFL. Last year was an All-Pro. This year he was in consideration, top 4 rushers in the NFL. Jeremiah Love's probably making more money than
That's
Kyron
crazy.
Williams,
That's crazy.
right? Because of NIL, he can get paid X number of money, right? What, let's say it's $1 million plus. Well, Kyron's getting bonuses and stuff like that because he's performing. So let's just say, I just say that as an example. Maybe
Right.
they're within a couple of $300,000 of each other, whatever. My point is, before, the ultimate proving ground was
Make it to the league.
dominant in college,
Yep.
make it to the league, survive, make the team, get lucky enough to perform as well as you can, be on the right team, be in the right cycle, get the right pay. Well, right now they're paying. I mean, they're paying the money to the guys, and yes, it's at a lesser rate. But if you're the top guy in your team, you're getting NFL level money now.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because we talked a year ago about college football becoming pro sports. In fact, somebody by the way, everybody, parents, different people who were at Elite on Sunday, can't tell you how many people came up, said, love the podcast, listen regularly. I miss it. I missed your 2 weeks that you guys were off. And I'm like, well, I take 2 weeks off every year because I'm that guy. Christmas time. But anyway, they brought up, you guys nailed it. You guys nailed it a year ago, right? You
Yep.
guys said it was a pro sports, and man, look at it. Look at where it's going. So theoretically, college football could supplant the NFL.
I think it financially, from a revenue generation standpoint, you got 70 Power 5 teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at it.
That's bigger than 32.
Bingo. Yeah.
And so I think, how does the NFL combat that expansion?
Yeah.
They will, because now they're starting to talk international.
And I was going to say,
Mexico City,
into Canada.
right? One of the things I had heard years ago when the Rams were still here, like when they talked about moving teams to London, the way that they were going to make that work, they were going to move 2 teams that would have like a hub in London. So say it was like the Jaguars and the Patriots. I mean, it's a bad example, but they would play 8-week stints. So all their away games would be over there.
Yeah.
And then they would come home and play 8 at home, right? And then the other team would be over there playing their 8. And then then it minimizes people having to, the travel for one particular team, which they would have a huge competitive advantage, in my opinion. But yeah, I could see Mexico City. I think
your best bet would be absorbing the Canadian Football League.
Yes.
And taking all that. Maybe Mexico City. I don't know that. I mean, there will be some interest in Mexico City because it is there's a lot of like people from the United States, and there's places who would watch it. I don't see it being successful in Europe. I don't see it being successful in Asia.
The tough thing with Canada, though, I think with their labor laws, and that's what they would have to have like some sort of, well, maybe if whatever
the politics changes,
all the politics changes, because what happens is like the U.S. players are relegated. There's only X number of people. So like, in other words, like if a person, just a normal job up there, if a Canadian can fill that role, they get the job, right? So someone coming in by their laws, so the same laws apply with football, so they can only have X percent of their roster can be people from outside the country. So typically their linemen are Canadian based, but they bring in quarterbacks.
A Canadian?
It's a really strange deal. So the NBA gets away with it a little bit.
And we're getting off the path, but I mean, man, they bring in a lot of outside people into their country to supposedly do jobs.
Yeah.
So I don't see how you're going to stop.
So it is, but the Canadian Football League does have a rule with that. So you'll see like that they're. So otherwise, it would be a ton of Americans playing football there. So it protects it. So I could see that.
Although you've really seen football grow in
Oh,
Canada.
hell yeah.
And you've seen it. You've trained Canadian guys who have
We have
come down
guys
from
come down from
Canada
Canada. Yeah.
to train at elite.
A bunch.
Yeah,
Got kids from Mexico come.
yeah, at Lindenwood every year. I'm surprised at the number of Canadians who are showing up.
They
trying
play a different brand of football. They're very mechanically sound.
Mhm.
They're very technically sound.
Yeah.
And their US 18 under 18 team has beaten the US 18 under 18 team
Yeah.
numerous times.
and being technically sound versus a bunch of guys who are just out there. I'm a talented
Right.
guy. That's going to happen.
So again, you spend time on fundamentals and then you interplay and put those guys into your team's a better team.
Yeah.
Right. You take a bunch of individuals that are really good athletes that don't quite understand how to play their position.
Jerky. Yeah.
Yeah. And all of a sudden
Playing
things
loose.
don't, the synchronicity of the game is not as easy.
No, it's not. And
So-
it all goes back to the training. Can you imagine what those practices are like? You say it's just, walkthroughs. And it's so funny because you were talking about how practices are just guys just, coordinating.
Yeah. You just, here's where you're supposed to be.
It's walkthroughs
Yes.
for the most part. And I think it would shock people who don't go to that. And I'm talking about schools that have won state championships. You go to their practice and you see that.
Yeah,
and
because
it's
part of the game, you have to out execute people. You have to, but again, you're only as strong as your weakest link,
Mhm.
right? That's why, like within our off-season development program, our goal with all of our lifting and strength performance is to attack what people's weaknesses are. But if you're a high school coach, I don't need to make your top 5 better players better to make you better. I need to make your middle 15 players better.
Right.
If I can get them more athletic and make them more skilled, your team is going to be a better football team for sure.
Without question. And I've got to tell you what, I mean, this past Sunday, the first day, there were schools, and I won't even mention them, but that had their entire starting offensive line show up. Their guys who were going to be their starting defensive line show up. Seeing more of that happen.
I will tell you what always is I love to see. We have a lot of high school coaches who bring their kids in and train. A lot of youth coaches, and more and more. And I respect the heck out of that. We love having those guys in the building. They're there taking care of their kid. You know what I mean? Like it's their son.
Yeah.
And we take that very, seriously. And we take that and we want to do the best we can for them. And it means a lot to us.
Yeah.
And we love that opportunity. But I always say that's a good sign, right? It means we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
If someone trusts their child to, work with you, again, we're part of the puzzle. We're not the entire, I'm not going to teach you their scheme. I don't even know what they run.
Right. It's wild because I saw probably about as many coaches as I did parents.
Yeah.
Bringing their kids in there.
A lot of coaches.
And some of them are bringing them from farther away, not just guys right here in the area.
I love it. I think to me, and I love having conversations and seeing what those coaches are doing, what they're up to. And there's other then coaches can talk to each other. I mean, it's cool. I think it's a really cool
pick
environment.
Each other's brains.
100%.
It's super cool. Speaking of super cool, some events coming up is our last little bit here that I think we need to probably talk about. First, coming up on the 17th,
February.
Yeah. And in fact, I got a message from a middle schooler from Columbia, Missouri this morning. Wanted to know. His question to me was, he's a quarterback, but he also wants to get some work in at wide receiver coming to the combine. So which should he sign up as? And could he get some
the way those one-on-ones work, typically, if you're a quarterback, you're in the quarterback line.
Right.
There's always a ton of quarterbacks, right?
Right.
You throw your throws and then your passes and then go over and jump in line and get a few reps at receiver.
Exactly what I said.
That's what you do.
I said you sign up as a quarterback, get your reps. I go, then I'm sure there'll be time to slide in.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
A parent actually reached out to me and he's been to a couple different camps and we've talked about this so many times. And he was talking about helping regulate kids, coming and going in the lines. And the tough thing is at the Lindenwood camp, it's a smaller group theoretically because they have 4 groups going, but receivers aren't dumb. They figure out who those quarterbacks are, and quarterbacks aren't dumb. They figure out, especially the older quarterbacks that have been there, they get 2 or 3 guys. They're like, hey, I want that guy. That's my guy. So when their guy's up, they jump.
Yep.
And so the more guys they have over there, the easier it is for them to get reps. And then people are like, oh yeah, that's his guy.
Yep.
Well, the problem is if that guy, the receivers are jumping line, then it creates a really bad precedent. So, my advice has always been, if you want to get reps in those things, you have to be willing to stand your ground and kind of be an ass.
Step up.
And, they don't want to see you fighting in the line, but they also want to see you, because you and I both know there is a ton of coaches who are observing that. Some coaches are uber turned off by the guys that are line jumpers.
Yep.
But there are other coaches that are absolutely looking for the line jumpers.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I like it. It shows that you want it. I hate when I see guys, especially talented guys. In fact, I believe it was a year ago. Might have been a year ago at a Boom thing. There was a talented young man, hadn't really done a lot in high school yet, who was standing back. And I went up to him. I said, I go, take your reps. Go up there, like you said, stand your ground, take your reps. And he's like, okay. And I talked with his father. He's getting some D1 offers now. Because
but part of that's why you go to combines and camps at a younger age, so you can learn how to do it.
Yep.
And then you're not so taken aback.
Don't be intimidated, right?
And to a smaller scale, like on a Sunday, we do one-on-ones with the O-line, D-line. We do one-on-ones with our receivers and DBs and quarterbacks. Same thing's going on there.
Love the aggressive guys.
Same thing's going on there.
Get their rep.
You have kids that'll sit back and wait.
Watch.
And usually it's at the end of a session, so it's done. The coaches kind of just let it happen.
Yep.
More organically, and you'll see kids. I will tell you, I watched it the other day. My son had thrown a ball. I walked by, and I was picking something up or whatever, and then I noticed that he had thrown, and then like literally he's right back up. I was thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get on him for jumping in there.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, the kids were like, no. The receiver was up. It's a kid that's on his team.
Yeah.
So like, hey, you'll get Braden, your guy's up, right? So there's some of that where quarterbacks all kind of, because here's the thing, they're doing the same thing with their guys. So like they don't want to throw to your guy, which is fine. But I think that there's learning how to navigate that as a receiver, DB, O-line, D-line, quarterback. It's critical. It's critical because it's not life or death, but it's close to it when it comes to recruiting. It's pretty high level stuff.
And you got to step up because a guy like me is there. And I have in the past gone and to a quarterback, be like, hey, I want you to throw to this guy.
100%. That is going on. Coaches are doing that.
Yep. I want you to throw to this guy.
And so as a parent in the stands, sometimes you look at it and you're thinking like, hey, I paid my $50 or $100 to be here. Yeah. There's other things going on that are far more organic. Some of it may seem kind of like not good from afar, but really it's a guy going, hey, I want to see you go against that DB.
Your O-line and D-line coaches at Elite, they do that a lot.
Yeah.
They'll see who's the talented guys and be like, hey, you follow this guy. Wherever he goes, you go, because we want that matchup because you're good, he's good. You're going to make each other better.
Correct.
So there's that. So back to the back to the combine.
17th of February for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Then Saturday, March 8th, we'll have our combine out at Rams Park, the old Rams Park, Lou Fuse Athletic. I would tell you, don't get lured into thinking just because you got an invite from somebody from a foreign entity, from a different state, that means anything. I mean, I know it sounds great, but at the end of the day, like
makes you feel good.
But there's not much to it. When you can come right in your own backyard, test on the same equipment you're going to be testing on at Lindenwood, around the same coaches, and be a part of something that, quite honestly, as soon as we wrap that day on the 8th, there's major Power 5 schools looking for that data immediately.
Without question. And I go as far, and I tell everybody, and I've said it on here before, there's only 3 places that I would say you have to go to. Elite Combine, that's number 1. That sets it all in motion. And we've seen it for years. You set that in motion, right? The Elite Combine. The KC Varsity Combine, which is later in the spring.
Yeah, so like a outdoor spring, perfect timing.
Right before then Lindenwood camp. You do those 3,
you're set.
And in fact, at the Elite Combine on March 8th, I was talking with Wayne Orr, who's the director of the KC Varsity Combine. So 2 guys from the Elite Combine that are the 2 best guys that we picked will get free KC Varsity. Yeah.
Very
KC
nice.
Varsity
very nice
admission.
Yeah, and then they'll get to go to the one here in town and be a part of it. And so
So more incentive to come to the Elite Combine
Yeah.
on March 8th.
Listen, guys, start working now. Don't wait.
Right.
We had a packed house. Our high school group last year in 2024 was packed our opening day.
Mm-hmm.
This year we had the same number. I think a few more kids than last
And you
year.
had like double the
It's
one in the first
yeah,
session.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then the
For
last
we have 2 high school sessions, one at 12:30 and one at 3:30. If you've never been in, come in. The first one's a free trial. I know there's tons of people that are saying, "Oh, I could do this, I can do that." Okay, great. But I promise you, you want to be with people this day and age that are ultra connected in this world, like myself and JP. But more importantly than connected, can actually real world give you the skills that we know for a fact that people want to see, right?
Yeah.
And there is so much. I've seen so much in 26 years of doing this that like people come and go.
Yeah.
They just come and go, and you know what? It's like a prize fighter. You stick around. How many guys have tried to do what you were doing? A ton, and they come and go. And then the reality of it is we're standing here still because you know what the motive is? The motive is to help people get better.
100%.
The motive is not about how many followers we have or how many.
We're not looking for clout.
Any clout because
we're the worst self-promotion.
Yeah, we're
people
grown men, and we love doing this.
Right.
We didn't get into it for that reason.
Yep.
And so there are a lot of people that are going to tell you what they want to do, but if you peel the onion back, they're wanting to get into your pocket for different reasons, right? Downline, like NIL stuff and this and that. That's not our objective. Our objective is to help you maximize your experience as a player.
Exactly.
We want to maximize your experience, right? Not our experience.
And parents see that, and I can't tell you the thanks that we get, and it's incredible, and we appreciate everybody who does that. I mean, every time you turn around, I know you get it, I get it all the time.
Makes it worthwhile.
It does make it worthwhile. Last thing about the Elite Academy and the training is you have people who are just starting. There was one guy there who I don't think he'd ever played football before, but he was wanting to get in there. And you had college signed guys, and you had young guys. There was one young guy who came in the afternoon session who, I don't know, he has double-digit offers already, and he's a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you have
one-handed
all
grabs.
that. Yep.
Everybody in between.
Everybody in between, all trying to get better. So that's what you get to work with. And so
come on in.
So Sunday, and if people want to find out more about the Elite Combine and
just elitefootballcombine.com, and then
there.
Come on in. We'll start to pub up more of it as we get closer. But really, at the end of the day, like you should be working, running, and we do speed classes Monday through Friday. I know it's hard to get outside and run right now, but we'll help you. We can help you. We know what we're doing.
Absolutely. So that'll do it for us this week. I know we could do a 2-hour show. I know there's been a suggestion of that. That's where you can find us on social media. I'm at JP Rock MO on X, JP Rock Scouts U on Instagram, and you can be found at
Elite Football on X, Elite Football Academy on Instagram.
Love hearing from everybody. Everybody stay safe. Doesn't look like we're going to get snow this weekend like they had thought, but it's bitter cold. Bitter cold. So everybody stay safe out there. I know it's all freezing back up.
Brutal.
Go out on your yard. You think you're stepping in snow, and it's
good.
nice. And I wasn't on skis. I'm not a skier like you. So
yeah.
I heard some things. I heard some things about you.
We're trying. At least I made it back. I mean, at least I made it back in one piece.
Yeah, your wife was like, she was shocked that you were still that good at skiing. So
well, you got to be good at something.
You got
right?
that. You got that. Yeah, exactly. All right, that'll do it for us, everybody. Have a great week, and we will talk to you next week. See ya.